With Harry Reasoner and Barbara Walters, I'm Howard K. Smith in ABC's election headquarters. We just reported that the third most populous state, Pennsylvania, has been captured by Carter. The national figures now on popular vote, 57% of the votes have been counted. Carter leads 51% to Ford's 48%. Barbara, have you some other results?
Yes, I have a projection for the state of Oklahoma. Oklahoma, with 8 votes, has gone to Ford by a close margin. This state was considered a toss-up, and if Ford needs some good news, it's just 8 votes, but they are for him.
The electoral vote is Ford 121 to Carter's 224. It would take very little more to put Carter across if he could win the big states.
46 votes would do it, 46 electoral votes, according to our projection. We've been keeping track through the evening on separate cards of how these two candidates have put together their winning states, and beginning with Jimmy Carter, he has accumulated his 224 electoral votes, beginning in terms of size with New York, the second biggest in the country, then Pennsylvania, the third biggest, Florida, which was not a surprise but was very necessary for him, Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Georgia, all expected, although North Carolina could have gone the other way. Missouri was, I think, at least a moderate surprise for Jimmy Carter and heartening for him. And Louisiana, Howard K. Smith, who grew up there and has studied the state, says this year that is a surprise to him. Maryland, no surprise. Minnesota, no surprise. Tennessee and Alabama, of course, no surprise. Kentucky, he figured to do it. South Carolina, he figured. Arkansas, West Virginia, Rhode Island, and Delaware. Washington, D.C. was no surprise. That's his total of 224, with the big ones that he's gotten so far that are extremely important, New York and Pennsylvania, and some big ones still to come.
If you want to take a look at what this looks like on the map so that you can have some idea of which way various sections of the country are going, we'll show you our map now. And the blue is for Carter and the yellow is for Ford. And you can see, of course, in the far west, it's too early for us to call those states. And out there is the state of California with the largest number of electoral votes, 45. And we said earlier it's still a split with the key precincts reporting in, so it's much too early for us to call California.
I have the impression that President Ford has got to really make some sweeps of the remaining big states in order to catch up and win.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has to win them all, really. I mean, if he lost either Illinois or Ohio, or a combination of states like Wisconsin and Iowa, which are so close that it's unbelievable. Iowa remains at 49-49. I think you've still got Ohio tied up. But it is a case, as Lou Harris pointed out a couple of hours ago, where President Ford now he cannot afford to lose any more major states. And Jimmy Carter could lose 1 or 2 of those and still make it.
I don't know whether Governor Brown was talking the way a politician talks or not, but if he knew something we don't know about the trend of opinion in California, well, that would be the ultimate disaster for Ford.
Well, at this point, it is from our projection. He may have insight that we don't, but from our projection, it is not known yet. The only thing that is known is that it was quite a heavy voter turnout. But in general, as we look back, there are not too many surprises tonight. We had heard it wouldn't be a very heavy voter turnout, and Lou Harris says that from what he's been able to judge, it has not been a very heavy turnout. There have not really been surprises. We knew that Ford would have this kind of a problem beforehand, so it's almost been a more predictable election than we had thought maybe a day or 2 or 3 ago.
Well, if you look at the popular vote, 51 to 48%, which is the way it has stayed now, I think, since about 8:30 nationally. That's almost exactly what the polls figured would happen if you split the undecided. It was a 1% margin one way or another, and if you split it according to the way they expected the undecided to go, they figured Carter would lead by 3%, and he has all evening.
But it's amazing how these states that matter now, that have not been projected, stick to their almost even races. You mentioned Iowa a moment ago. It just won't budge from that neck-and-neck condition.
You know, we have Oklahoma with 97% of the precincts already in, and it's still Ford 50 and Carter 49.
Well, take a look at Take a look at the state of Texas, which is very important. The Democratic National Chairman Robert Strauss made a $5,000 bet that Carter would take Texas. So he has a strong personal stake in it, as well as a matter of principle. Texas, 72% of the precincts have reported by now. Carter is leading by 51 to 48%, exactly the same figure as his national one. And yet, the people on our desk who are keeping track of it and checking it on and out feel that you cannot call it yet.
Well, we'll be right back. Coming up next on our continuous election coverage, right after this. Waiting for us down in Tucson, Arizona, his home, Pima County, is Congressman Mo Udall, who made a very big splash, especially in Wisconsin in the primaries. And we're going to talk to him now. He makes himself visible. There he is. Congressman Udall, tell me, is it true that a Democratic president can work better with a Democratic Congress than a Republican one can?
Well, sure, it's true, and that's been one of the big issues this year. Did the people really want more stalemate, more vetoes, more congressional energy programs as opposed to presidential energy programs, or did they want some cooperation? And I think one of the things that people are saying out there across the country tonight, if Carter wins, and it looks like he will, is that they want the Congress to cooperate with the president. I think we will cooperate with him.
Congressman, tell me, you were the only candidate in the primaries who applied a sense of humor. Do you feel that it's dangerous for a politician to use a sense of humor when campaigning?
No, it's the only way you survive, and humor counts for a lot. Not cruel humor, not vicious humor, but the best kind of humor, I think, is that's poked at yourself or maybe at your opponent in a kind sort of way, but not a vicious way.
Congressman Udall, this is Harry Reasoner. One of the things that Jimmy Carter talked about at the Democratic Convention shortly after is a mandate to work with the Democratic Congress. Now, somehow a 32-point lead in the polls has been dissipated. If he wins, it will be by a very small margin in the popular vote. Is that going to give him a problem?
Well, Jimmy Carter didn't win by and large with the help of the members of Congress. He ran a kind of an independent campaign. And having won, if he does, very narrowly, he's not going to have a big victory, a big mandate. He will have won very narrowly. I think it's more and more apparent that he'll have to work with the Congress, and I believe that he will. Beyond this, the Congress is in a much more aggressive, independent mood. We've reformed the Congress. We want to be heard from. We want to be consulted, and there's a disposition to cooperate with the President Carter. I think we'll be trying as hard as we can, but we want to be equal partners in this operation, and that would have been the case whoever won tonight.
Congressman Udall, I remember a little while back at one point we were talking, and you said that you rather thought that your future role might be similar to that of Barry Goldwater in the Republican Party, that you'd keep things kind of stirred up and that you'd speak out when you had something very strong to say, even if it was in your own party. Is that how you see yourself?
I think so. I'm serene and happy tonight. I campaigned pretty hard for Jimmy Carter, and I want to be a member of the House after fighting the seniority system all of the years. I've got a good chunk of it, and I hope I'll be in a position to speak out, to support him when he's right, and I think he's going to be right most of the time, but to act as a spokesman for the millions of people who work for me and help me in this presidential campaign.
You think you'll try the primaries again 4 years from now, Congressman?
No, you know, we've had a pattern the last 30 years, 8 years of Democrats under Truman, 8 years of Republicans under Eisenhower, 8 years of Kennedy Johnson, and 8 years of Nixon Ford. We're now going to have 8 years of Jimmy Carter, and I want to be in the Congress part of that time to help him. And so I had a great adventure. It was a great adventure to campaign all over this country. I think I had one good chance at it, and I'm not looking forward to going back to that road again.
Thank you very much, Congressman Udall. Here in New York, where one of the dramatic Senate victories tonight was that of Patrick Moynihan over James Buckley, at Moynihan headquarters is Bettina Gregory, talking to the senator-elect. Bettina?
Harry, with me is Senator-elect Daniel Patrick Moynihan of New York, who ran a very tight race against the incumbent, Senator James Buckley. Senator, did you expect to win so easily or so quickly?
Well, you said it was a tight race. I gather we won fairly well. I expected to win, not perhaps by as much as I did, but then there was a strong support across the state. New York was on the ballot this year. We need to make a claim on Washington, and obviously I proposed to do so, and that's what the voters chose.
Senator, there was an extremely heavy voter turnout, particularly in New York City and especially in the ghetto areas. You received something like 77% of the black vote. Do you consider this a mandate from this segment of the population?
Well, surely. We're all minorities in New York, you know. I've been happy to have got 77% of the Irish vote. I don't suppose I did. But the Puerto Rican New Yorkers, black New Yorkers, yes, we are New Yorkers. We want this city to live and this state to grow, and we've got a battle on our hands. Not much good news ahead for us, you know. I know that. I think the people know it.
Senator-elect Moynihan, this is Howard Smith. I never expected we would have this confrontation when I knew you back in London when you were a student.
I was just telling Bettina 26 years ago, Howard. I wish Paul Niven were here to see it.
I do too. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir.
Tell me, why do you think more was not made about the fact that you were in the Nixon and Ford administrations? I should have thought they'd have made much about that.
Well, I went around and said that I'd worked in the cabinet, the sub-cabinet, the last 4 presidents, and I knew the national government. I wasn't afraid of it. One had to use it. That it wasn't a question of getting it off our back, it was getting it on our side. And this notion that the American people are afraid of their government and think it's an alien institution, it's not so. At least it's not so in New York, and a good thing too, Howard.
Pat, you said to your voters, you'll know I'm there. Now, what are you going to do, first of all, to let them know you're there?
I think the first job we are going to have is to get New York City's financial situation in shape, and the next thing is to call on the president-elect. I hope it's going to be Governor Carter, and sit down and see about the Democratic platform. I helped draft the platform. I drafted most of the urban planks in it, and he has come out very strongly on behalf of welfare reform, which is a plank I wrote, and he so said. And let's see if we get down and get some legislation together and get it up to the Congress and get it passed and get some of that burden off New York, which has carried it alone or almost alone for too long now.
Well, congratulations, Senator-elect, and thank you very much.
Thanks,
I'll see
Howard.
you again. Coming up next, more of our continuous election coverage right after this.
We're back now. I want to talk with you about one of the referendums which can affect anyone who likes to gamble throughout this whole country, and particularly affect those who like to gamble in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey had a referendum which would approve casino gambling, make gambling legal in the state, but only restricting it to Atlantic City. And the New Jersey voters have approved casino gambling in Atlantic City. That vote is not complete, but it's substantial. It's been running 4-3 in favor. That should rejuvenate the city, and it will mean that a great many people who went out west, who went out to Las Vegas, will be coming east to Atlantic City, and that could mean much for that city and for the whole state. Howard has a projection for us, and then we'll have more referendums later on.
I don't know whether this is anticlimax after that or not. Alaska, the biggest state in the Union, 2.5 times as big as Texas, covers 4 time zone, goes to Ford. ABC News projects that President Ford has carried Alaska.
One of the states which we still do not know about, one of the states which is still very close, is Mississippi, one of the southern states. It's now Carter 51% and Ford 48%. And a man who knows a good deal about the South and its temperament and its moods is with us right now. George Wallace is in Montgomery, Alabama. Good evening, Governor Wallace. And may I ask you, first of all, since you did do campaigning in Mississippi for Governor Carter, have you had any word that we might not know about how that state's going?
Governor Carter, he's leading at the present time. It's always been very close in Mississippi during this campaign, but I think he'll carry Mississippi and all of the South, including Texas.
Governor, what is your mood like tonight? This is an election that might possibly have been yours. How do you feel this evening?
I feel good that we have now seen a deep Southerner elected President of the United States, which means that regardless of where you're from, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, or Michigan, you can be elected president.
A young reporter traveling with us one day turned to me in an airplane somewhere over central Illinois and said to me what I think says it best.
I think we're having some audio troubles, Governor.
Yes, Governor, we're having some difficulties hearing you. We will try to come back with you later. We're having some audio trouble, so we'll have to return now to our studio. Perhaps if you can stand by, we can continue our conversation just a little bit later. Let us give you the electoral vote picture right now as it stands, Carter, with 224 electoral votes, and Ford with 124. And we'll have more of our continuous election coverage right after this.
We'd like to express our gratitude once more to the League of Women Voters. I'd like to explain to you why. When we project the winner of an election, we base our projection on early vote counts made immediately when the polls close in a state, very early. And right there in all of our 3,000 key precincts we've chosen across the country are volunteers from the League. They telephone the first returns to other League volunteers you see here at our computer center in Connecticut. Our political specialists take it from there and make the projection. But back at the source in those 3,000 key precincts is where reliability starts. We found through several election years that the women of the League report accurately and on time and from 99% of the precincts, and that's an amazing record. The League of Women Voters, by the way, is the same organization that sponsored the 4 debates, 3 presidential ones and 1 vice presidential one.
I think it's an appropriate time to look at a little arithmetic on electoral votes. At the moment of ABC's projected totals, Jimmy Carter has 224, Gerald Ford has 124. That means that Jimmy Carter needs 46 for the 270 he needed to win, and President Ford would need 146. The point is that, well, that sounds good for Carter. He has to get the 46. There are 190 electoral votes still up for grabs, still not projected. They are in big states like Illinois and Ohio and Texas. They are in smaller states like Wisconsin and Iowa, and there just doesn't seem to be any movement. In Texas, for instance, with 73% of the precincts reporting, Jimmy Carter has a 52 to 48% lead, but it is still too close to make any intelligent call. Iowa sticks stubbornly at 49-49 and has, I think, since the first vote came in.
People from Iowa, I hear, are very stubborn.
They are stubborn.
Yes. Lest all of you in Iowa call in and say, how dare she say that, you do know that your native son is Harry Reasoner, and he has from time to time known to be somewhat stubborn.
Right.
Mississippi is still a toss-up. That southern state is still, with 64% of the precincts in, it's still Carter 51 to Ford 48, and no call there. New Mexico, which has 4 electoral votes, is still a toss-up, and in New Mexico they usually do go to the winner. They have since they began in their statehood. Howard?
Well, Barbara, that's the national election story at 22 minutes after the hour.